So welcome. I'm here with Esther Daemen, and I'm very happy to have a chance to catch up with Esther and to find out a little bit about her experience in the pharma industry and also how she sees things going in the future and her advice for those of you out there who are looking at getting into the industry. So thank you very much for joining me, Esther. It's great to see you.
Wonderful.
Why don't we start by just you telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey and what you're doing now?
Sure. Well, thank you for inviting me, Joe. It's always a pleasure connecting with you. So a little bit about myself. Oh dear. So my name is Esther Daemen. I'm a consultant in the clinical research field, but also quality and general regulatory, both in the pharma, bio, and medical devices arena. I've been working for, oh my gosh, over 30 years now, of which more than 21 in the clinical research field. So I'm by education, I'm a nurse, and I also have a master's in business and a lot of certificates related to online design and training, also face-to-face training, but online training as well. And I'm also a certified DPO, so data protection officer. So what I've been doing over the years, I have started out as an occupational health nurse, then I became a medical representative, and then I heard of something called clinical research. So I started in the CRO as a CRA, and then over the years I moved my way up to senior CRA, lead CRA, project manager, global training manager, director of professional development, and then director of quality and training, both for pharma bio as CROs, and also in the medical research field. But then since January 2020, I decided to use all of my expertise and to support in the field with my through consultancy services, actually. So today I have about 20 clients, of which 8 active, of which 1 full-time, both in the pharma and the medical devices arena. So I do GXP consultancy, but also regulatory on mainly software as a medical device, and general quality conduct and management and hosting of audits, audit and inspection readiness, and conducting audits myself as well for clients.
Right.
So that's
Wow.
Quite a thing, but yeah. 30
Sounds
years
like
summarized in 2 minutes. Yeah. Yes, I'm pretty busy, but I'm enjoying it. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Oh, great. So you've been in the industry for quite a while. So you must have seen quite a lot of change over that time. What do you think have been the main sort of changes that you've seen?
Yeah, well, the main change for me is definitely the move. The big jumps we made technology-wise. So the technology has taken over. In my days as CRA, I dragged big suitcases of copies of case report forms all over the world. My case suitcases were always labeled as heavy. Be careful with your bag for the airport staff. Towards a full electronic case report form, So I think those evolutions are awesome. I actually really am a technology geek myself, and I think with the correct use of technology, we've seen clinical research speed up and become more and more efficient. Of course, the downside of that is all of the validations of all of those electronic systems. So it does make research additionally complex that way. So that is the downside. But once you get a head around that and what that entails, validation is mainly with the setup and then the maintenance. But once it's set up and maintained, it does not require that much additional work. But of course, it triggered the global way of working and the remote way of working. So it was a good thing with the whole COVID situation. We already had that, because otherwise our industry would have dropped silent. It would have dropped dead until. So that, I think, is a good thing. Yeah. Also, the increase of complexity of clinical protocols. I don't wonder why they were trying to make it always so complex. So that also is an evolution that I've seen, but I do see that sponsors becoming more and more aware that more complex doesn't mean always better data on a short period of time. So yeah, one of the things that I focus on always is try to keep it simple while still meeting your endpoints of your trials.
Yeah.
So the technology, the validations, the remote way of working, the complexity of trials. Next is a big change is the risk-based approaches.
Mm-hmm.
I am a fan. I
Yeah.
am a fan. Because in my days when the protocol said you need to go every 2 months to your site for monitoring, you had to go no matter if you had work to do or not.
Yeah.
So I've taken a plane to Edinburgh to have coffee with the site just because my protocol said I had to go. Well, I'm glad we're away of that, surreal situation to a risk-based approach, meaning you go, this is just an example of the risk-based monitoring. You go to the site as often as is needed to ensure the risks related to the trial are mitigated or covered, that you have oversight and you have a control over the safety and the data integrity.
Yeah.
So I think that is a huge good progress. But I still find it very interesting to see how many organizations struggle with this. They don't know how to interpret it. And the main fear that I see or concern that the sponsors have is that when do we know when it's good, it's sufficient? When do we know what is a low, medium, or high risk? How do we set those boundaries, and where do? And because they are not feeling comfortable with it, they tend to constantly go back to doing everything 100% the way they're used to. Now, with the new generations of younger folks, that's less of an issue than the people coming from already from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But still, even the young people there, I do see that they sometimes go too light over it and say, "Oh, it's not an issue. Let's just, don't." So it's really learning how to, evaluate risks and how to be proactive.
Yeah.
The thing to the risk-based approach is, how do we avoid them first and foremost?
Yeah.
And the move, and there I go to the next trend that I see is the changes in regulations, because it's the regulations that push us to be more risk-based for efficiency reasons as well, to keep mainly for their reason is to keep clinical research affordable, but it's mainly also to avoid risks and to avoid patient safety, rights, and well-being, and data integrity issues and compliance issues, and how to avoid them, how to take the time upfront to design your protocols and your trials to avoid risks, instead of just trying to run with it and having a false feeling of safety, saying, "Oh, we will have our first patient in within 2 months." It's not that difficult to have your first patient in, but to have them in a safe, compliant way is a whole different story.
Yeah.
So those are the three things. So technology, risk-based approaches, and more and more strict regulations with the clinical trial regulation, but definitely with the medical device regulation.
Yes. Yeah.
That is
There's a huge amount of change there too, isn't there? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is for them a big leap into requirements from where they came from with the directive to the medical device regulation.
Yeah. Very much needed, I think. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a fan of everything here.
That's good to hear.
And I try to get that enthusiasm across with our clients.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I agree with everything that you said. It's music to my ears. Yeah.
But the thing is, what is important for clients to understand that it is feasible, as once you understand that it is feasible, and you can be pragmatic within it, but pragmatic within the boundaries of the regulations. And that's people like us who can support with that.
Yeah. And you don't have to get it 100% perfect first time. You just got to give it a go and learn as you go along. It gets easier the more you do it, I think.
Absolutely. As long as you don't jeopardize any safety, rights, or well-being of patients or data integrity along the line, it's okay. Absolutely. Yes, and there are different ways of doing things, right? And it doesn't all have to, you don't have to have the Rolls Royce of every technology. You can still use an Excel sheet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, there has been a lot of change, and we've talked about that. So what do you think are going to be the main challenges for the future for our industry?
Yeah, well, I see two linked to the changes. Of course, these changes all bring challenges. The risk-based approaches, even though it has been effective since and up for inspection since June 2017 per GCP 6R2. It's still a challenge for a lot of sponsors and sites. But going from what I just said, I think these further technology, I think it will start disrupting our industry, and classical business models will no longer be effective. It's like, you know, Kodak and the and the digital photography.
Yeah.
Kodak also did not. Yeah, they actually did see it coming, but they didn't think it would go that fast. At one point, their business was useless. They were.
Yeah.
It's the
Yes.
same with Nokia and the iPhones.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Nokia it was the leader. 5 years later, they didn't have a business anymore because
Yeah.
iPhone took over. Now, I'm putting it a little bit black and white. I don't know if it will go this fast in our industry because we're a very risk-averse industry.
Yeah.
But with all of the technology, the remote way of working and the technology available, I do think that the CRA job will change
Yeah.
drastically in the next
Yeah.
5 to 10 years. So going to all of these sites, doing this all manually and yeah, a lot of is already being done remotely these days, but I'm sure somebody will come up with an idea to have source data verification, to have the digital electronic medical file linked directly to the eCRF. So that's SDV will no
Yeah.
longer be needed, be done by
Yeah.
a person. So those kinds of evolutions I do see as big disruptors coming our way.
Yeah.
Secondly, resources as well. Resources in the sense that finding people who are willing to combine all of these requirements, because in a research job, you have to be a little bit of a nerd. And I mean that very positively because I'm the biggest nerd in the world, you know, in the sense that you want to embrace regulatory. I want to know what it means, you know, the so what question, how this translate into practice. You need to be technology savvy. You need to be able to communicate with people. You need to have a tech therapeutic area. You need to be able to work in a very fast-paced environment. Always thinking about budget and timelines. So there is constantly more and more required of folks to to be able to deliver.
Yeah.
And the expectations of sponsors for that as well. So small to medium organizations. I see this with my smaller medical device companies. They say, oh, I have great software. And then when I do the analysis, they are in a risk level 2A. But if you then see all the requirements to get a CE mark, they just don't have the bandwidth, the understanding, or the resources to follow. So resources really in capable staff who are able to keep on delivering on the long term and willing to combine all of this, because if you're a people person, you like to go to sites, and then your CRA job becomes purely remote. That's not the same job anymore, you know. So I'm sure we will find them, but it will be a change, and but keeping good resources who are able to deal with the stresses and the requirements will be a challenge, I think. So the technology disruptions, the staffing and the resources, and then the continued move to more and more risk-based approaches with the new ICH E8 guideline, where you have these quality factors, really quality by design up in front. So it becomes more and more vague, and it's all becomes more and more up to the sponsors to provide document evidence for compliance without using a checklist. And it's already now a challenge since the R2 just to embrace the risk-based approach. So the R3, the upcoming R3, which is aligned with the key quality indicators per ICH E8, that means that you need to provide evidence that you have mitigated, that you have managed your risks for your trial. It gives a big advantage that you can have different ways of doing it, and it gives freedom of doing it, but instead of following a checklist. But the disadvantage is that you have to do it, and that creates, again, new skills and new ways of working. to ensure that you can do all of these gap analysis, the risk assessments, have all of the experts involved, be comfortable with your evaluation, constantly monitoring, are there changes? It's not done after one time, it's an ongoing thing. So it's a whole new way of looking at things, and it's pushed on us by the regulatory because they want us to be more efficient and risk-based, and they don't want us to spend, I don't know how many resources on a low risk, and rightfully so. But it's one thing to ask for, it's another thing to put it in practice. And I see this small to big organizations that are currently, trying to get their head around it. There are even a lot that don't even know that this is coming. So we, so one of the things that I do is create that awareness and take them by the hand and bring them to that. It's already a lot of work just to bring them to that awareness.
Yeah, it is. And like you said earlier, there is this level of fear around it as well, and how we do it and how we make sure we're getting it right. And
how do I budget for this, right? Because when you have rolling budgets, well, how many, in our days, it was, okay, you go twice every month to the site, period. You budget for it, done. But here, when it's risk-based, you say, okay, you go after your first patient. Maybe the first 5 you do full SDV, and then you look at it risk-based. It could be that you have to be there 5 times a month, but it could be that you don't have to be there for 5 months. So it's more labor intensive to that's why often they say, risk-based working, it will be more cost effective, but you're costed somewhere else. It's not maybe in that CRA who goes there, but it's in staff who assess how do we budget here, and how do we get also constantly the approvals if it's out of scope from the sponsor and all of that. So there is always cost involved. It's just in a different way to avoid inefficiencies and high risks being unnoticed. But it's all good. I think these are good challenges.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And ultimately it should mean that we are able to be more cost effective, and we're able to get things done more quickly, and because we won't have, we'll be addressing errors sooner and dealing with things sooner rather than letting them escalate. So
but that goes back to my example where we started here. What is the use of me drinking coffee? Well, it was fun for me, but on a site, there might be huge risks at another site that go unnoticed or picked up much more later because I could not prioritize that. And that's actually the core of the reason why this whole risk approach, well, one of the reasons that came about.
It was so interesting to hear your perspective on all of this. And what I wanted to ask you just before we finish is, have you got any advice for people starting out in the industry today? What would be your words of wisdom based on your experience?
Well, there are two things. First of all, if you want to get into this industry, know that it's a very interesting industry to my knowledge. But I think once you get in and you like a challenge, you like to learn new things, you like to be doing different things, not just purely technology, but also interaction with people, regulatory, but also creative thinking, and you have some therapeutic background, this is definitely the industry to be in. I have been doing this now so long, and I'm still excited doing this every day. So, but know your regulations. Don't just go smooth over it and say, oh yeah, I get it, I know it. No, know your regulations, take the time to read them, to take the trainings related to it, to read about it, to be part of organizations like quality related organizations or research not-for-profits that provide you ongoing updates. Make sure that you know what you're talking about, because ultimately our job has an impact on patient safety, rights and well-being. So if we are not doing our jobs correctly, that could have a huge human impact. So know your stuff. And secondly, technical things you can learn, how technology works, that's technical things you can learn, but what is key is learn how to communicate. So your soft skills, what they call soft skills, but I call them required leadership skills almost, to be able to deal with challenging situations, because you have a timeline. a site is not recruiting sufficient patients, then there is a huge protocol deviation. Your sponsor, if you work with a CRO, your sponsor is rowling, saying, yeah, but I want, and then they come and do a forecast audit. So you have to be able to deal and stay calm in these challenging situations. Just to give you an example, one of the clients that I'm working for now, for almost a year, I've done almost weekly sponsor audits, hosting sponsor audits almost every week. And there's always something that sponsor's trial is going to stray a little bit there. My job, but of course that's because I've been here for 20 years, that's not for juniors, is just to get the whole of these people together, make sure that it's been conducted in a professional, calm, relaxing way, but always stay professional. So learn how to communicate, learn how to influence and make friends, how to conduct communications in a non-violent way, and that is the non-violent communication. So those are my two Bibles: how to communicate and make friends, and non-violent communications. If you learn this with your technical skills, you're up for a beautiful career.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. It's been fantastic to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time, because I know you're very busy. And
on to the next sponsor audit.
Yeah, indeed. It's been great to talk to you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for having me, and good luck all of you out there.